This is the book of Luke 21, verse 25. And there should be signs in the sun and the stars upon the earth. The squares of nations will perplex the Caesar's word. Right, so we're going to be seeing more signs of that. So this was a part two of the sit-down lesson of the prophecy updates as of April the 28th, 2025 on this Monday night. This is second Esdras, chapter 9 and verse 3. It says, therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes in the upwards people of the world. So we're going to be seeing more increase in earthquakes in the upwards people of the world. And that's what we're seeing. Second Esdras, chapter 15 and verse 15. It says, for the sword and destruction draweth nigh, one people should stand up and fight against another with swords in hands. Right, that's what we're seeing seditions and uprises, upwards people of the world, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. Second Esdras 15 verse 16, for there shall be sedition among men, invading one another. They should not regard their kings and their princes and course of action stand in power. Right, so citizens rise up against their leaders of power, and citizens clash against one another. Seditions, uprises, and uproars people of the world. That's only going to continue to increase. This is the book of St. Mark, chapter 3, and verse 24. It says, if a kingdom be divided against itself, the king cannot stand. Right, so we see modern kings being divided against itself, which cannot stand. That's what we're seeing from an economic perspective, from a military perspective, and a nuclear escalation and tensions perspective as well, too. St. Mark, verse 25. And if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. Right, so if a house be divided against itself, the house cannot stand. So we're seeing more increase in significant signs of that. And this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, in verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. Right, that's what we're hearing in our world today. Just like Yahushua spoke about during his times. Now this can be related to modern times as well, too. We see modern day wars against. We see these modern day wars, rumors of wars heating up against these nations towards one another. That's why we're seeing these nuclear escalations are heating up. It says, and ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet. Right, so it's going to come to pass, but not going to end just yet. Matthew 24, verse 7, and it reads to the Holy Scriptures, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. Right, that's what we're seeing, modern day nation rise against modern day nation, modern day kingdom against modern day kingdom. And there should be famines, right? Modern day famines are taking place in the world today. And pestilence, right? This cholera outbreak, this measles outbreak, lister outbreak, and different various type of pestilence plagues that we're seeing, and earthquakes in diverse places, right? So we're going to be seeing the increasing of high magnitude of these earthquakes in diverse places, increasing famines, increasing pestilence, increasing nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and increasing wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24 and verse 8, all these are the beginning of sorrows, right? So these very important biblical signs and the signs of times that we see in our world today, just the increasing of these modern day biblical signs and signs of times of the beginning of sorrows of these prophecies about to come to pass and fulfilled, and these increasing historical, unprecedented modern day biblical signs and signs of times. So we're definitely going to be seeing increasing modern day biblical of the signs and times of the beginning of sorrows, which the Heavenly Father showed us that He spoke of from the days of before from the beginning. Now we're seeing it taking place in the world today in modern day time, just like it was in ancient times. It's the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 3, and verse 8. It says, a time to love, and a time of HATE, and a time of war and time of peace. Right, so we live in a time of war, and a time of HATE, and a time of love and peace as well too. But as of right now, we're definitely living in a time of HATE and a time of war as well too, which is only going to continue to increase in these modern times of the signs of times. Now I'm going to go into that RT.com. So once again, this is a part two of this sit-down lesson of prophecy updates. It says Putin orders a 3-day May ceasefire in Ukraine conflict, right? Because they're commemorating Victory Day for Russia. But after those 3 days up, you're still going to have the resuming of the Russia-Ukraine escalation heating up between both nations. And this is another sign of wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And this is a news article to charge up my phone. I see it's only on about 3%. And this is from RT.com. That's at RT.com, April 28th, 2025. It reads, it says Pakistan claims India attack is imminent, Reuters reports. Tensions have been rising between the nuclear-armed neighbors following a deadly attack in Kashmir, which is last Thursday of last week. It says Pakistan is expecting a Indian military inclusion following last week's deadly attack in India's administrated Jammu and Kashmir region. Pakistan Defense Minister told Reuters on Monday, on April the 22nd, it says as of April the 22nd, militants gunned down 26 terrorists in a Pahalgam, Kashmir. The attack has triggered outrage across Hindu majority India and led to calls for swift action against the Muslim majority Pakistanis. It says, speaking to the Reuters, Pakistani Defense Minister Kharujala Asaf had said the country's military is ready to face the mountain of threats. We have reinforced our forces because it is something which is imminent now. So we in that situation. So strategic decisions had to be taken. So those decisions have been taken. Ashraf says, according to the Ashraf, Pakistan's military has briefly the government about the possibility of an Indian attack. However, he did not provide further specifics regarding the intelligence underlying his assessment. New Delhi has accused Islamabad of supporting militants of Kashmir, a broader region claimed by both countries and the source of previous wars between them. It says Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has condemned the attack and vowed a firm response. I say to the whole world, India will identify, trace, and punish every group and their backers, and we will pursue them to the end of the earth, he stated. It says every effort will be made to ensure that justice is done. New Delhi has so far only taken diplomatic steps in retaliation, including expulsion of all Pakistanis in the country, the closure of the Wagah-Attar border between the two nations, and suspending the 19-city Indus water treaty on the joint use of the Indus River system. Islamabad has denied any involvement and has called for a neutral and transparent investigation into the incident. The defense minister emphasized that Pakistan remains on high alert, but still has stated that its nuclear arsenals will only be employed if there was a direct threat to our existence. Its Ashraf also declared that his remarks to another outlet on Monday that a war between India and Pakistan could start in 2 to 4 days had been misconstructed. I think it had been misinterpreted on some other channel. I have already talked to them. I have not said anything like this. Pakistan Daily Express Tribune quoted of him as saying that the channel asked me were all the chances of war. So I said that the next 2 or 3 days were crucial. Tensions of Kashmir has periodically led to the flare-ups between India and Pakistan, both of which maintain significant troop deployments in the region. This is Ecclesiasticus 3 verse 8. In a time to love, in a time HATE, in a time of war, a time of peace, right? So we never live in a time of war with the India-Pakistan border dispute situation heating up after that incident occurred in Kashmir of last week. So ever since then, definitely tensions been amount on both sides from the borders of India and Pakistan area because they've been exchanging gunfire between the troops over in that region. Once again, this is the book of Luke 21 verse 25. And there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars upon the earth. The distress of nations will perplex Caesar is one. Right, so that's what we're seeing. The distress of nations will perplex Caesar is one, which is an increasing nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, more seditions and uprising and upwards war. So we're seeing more significant signs of that. And once again, this is of the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6, and it reads to the Holy Scriptures. It says, "For nation shall rise against nation, right? India, Pakistan border dispute, Iran versus Israel, Russia versus NATO. The Israel Defense Force going against the pro-Iranian views, going against Hamas. That's a sign of a nation shall rise against nation, what goes into ethnos. It says, for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places." Right, so we're going to be seeing modern day famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, and nation against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Matthew 24, verse 6, once again, "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet." Go back to RT. It says, "Kremlin warns of many media disinformation of Ukrainian talks, reports." It says, "Ukraine won't win," JD Vance reports. And this is another news article from April the 28th, 2025. It reads, "Spain declares state of emergency after a nationwide blackout." It says the declaration allows for deploying the military to maintain public order. It says Spain declares a state of emergency on Monday after a massive power outage plunged the entire Iberian Peninsula into darkness. Authorities are still investigating the cause. Yeah. No, it's still on. It says this need to be connected issue about this. Please check. Oh, that's something else.
I believe it's that box.
Are you foreign print certain? We are foreign print. Certainty matters. When you need promo gear for gift.
I said I don't know what it was.
About
that.
For certain.
I believe it's that box.
Yeah, it gotta be the box.
Okay. Let's just dip.
See if I can turn it off right quick.
Your health.
Yeah, it might be the box.
That'll pop up on the box.
Right.
The box is short.
Yeah.
We was doing the other day, yesterday. Stop.
Calm G7. Don't wait. Call now and talk to a real person.
Friday nights, you bring your A game. Flirty walks, you bring your A game. Bring your A game when taking care of your sexual wellness and include Apertude, a prescription medicine used to reduce the risk of HIV. Apertude helps give you continuous protection. Take it every other month, and it's proven superior to once daily prep in reducing the risk of HIV.
Private, so.
You must be HIV negative to receive Apertude and get tested before each injection. If you think you're exposed to HIV or have flu-like symptoms, tell your doctor right away. More HIV testing may be needed. Apertude does not prevent other sexually transmitted infections. Practice safer sex to reduce your risk. Get Apertude is scheduled. Missing doses increases your HIV risk. Don't take Apertude if allergic to it or taking certain medicines that may interact. Tell your doctor about your medical conditions, liver problems, and mental health. Serious side effects include allergic reactions or rash, liver problems, and depression. If these occur, get medical help right away.
Yeah,
the most common side effect is
Yeah.
ask your doctor about Apertude.
Yeah, unless it might be the channel. Unless it might be the channel. I said, unless it might be the channel.
About our smokehouse barbecue bacon sandwich is the combination of flavors. From the brown sugar bacon to the smoky barbecue sauce, it's the whole package.
Yeah, it might be that channel too.
Was my divorce about to be finalized free? Just because I made a bad choice, my story has been taken from me. I'm still
Yesterday,
trying
Monday,
to
the
gain that
28th.
independence. I don't want to put myself at risk. I could walk away with a fresh start with a daughter for you and I.
Gypsy Rose, Life After Luck. New episode at an all-new time. Next. Only on Lifetime. Watch next day on the Lifetime app.
Yeah, where after this?
My name is Julia Mead. I'm a fourth-year medical student.
Okay.
And I'm here today to learn.
It says Spain declared a state of emergency Monday after a massive power outage plunged in the entire peninsula into darkness. Authorities still investigate the cause. The blackout was struck Spain and Portugal around midday and briefly affected parts of France, leaving millions without electricity, paralyzing public transportations and delaying flights. And this is another sign of wars, moments of wars, as we've been seeing. I believe it goes into that Joel 3 and verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. So we definitely seeing the increasing military spending, increasing between these nations because these nations are in that warlike mindset. That's why this continue to be proclaimed among the armies of the nations, prepare for war. So once again, excuse me for that momentary pause. And once again, this is a news article as of April 28th, 2025, and it reads from RT.com. It says global military spending in the largest surge since the Cold War report. Over 2.7 trillion was spent on sectors in 2024, according to the Stockholm International Peace and Research Institute. Global military spending increased 1 year on. It says more year and on year in 2024 than any time since the Cold War, according to the research by the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, the SIPRI. The report published on Monday noted that particularly rapid growth in Europe and the Middle East. Overall, expenditure has exceeded 2.7 trillion, marking the steepest annual rise more than 30 years, according to the report. Over 100 countries around the world harassed the military spending in 2024, the SIPRI wrote, adding that the government were increasingly prioritizing military security, often at the expense of the other budget areas. Ukraine has largely military burden globally, while its spending rise nearly 65 billion, equivalent to 34% of GDP, according to the report. Military spending in Europe, including Russia, climbed to nearly 700 billion in 2024, making the continent the main contributor to the global increase. Several countries in Central and Western Europe host unprecedented rise, with Germany spending jumped to 28% to more than 88 billion. For the first time since the reunification, Germany became the biggest military spending in the Western Europe, which has due 100 billion special defense funds announced. In 2022, Lorenzo Sprazzetto, if I pronounce his name right, a researcher with the SIPRI, says Berlin also the world's fourth largest military spending in 2024 after the U.S. and China, Russia, and before India, which together accounted 60% of the global total. The study found that NATO members have boosted their military expenditure spending in the commodity at 1.5 trillion, about 55% of global military expenditure in 2025. The U.S. remains NATO's largest contributor, spending 997 billion, about 2/3 of the military bloc's total of 37% of global expenditure. European NATO members also ramped up spending to a combined 454 billion. It says the SIPRI research Jade Giprostu Richards says the rapid rise in European NATO spending was driven mainly what she's called the ongoing Russian threat, right, between Russia and NATO. and the Western countries as well too, and right along with EU. It says the concerns about the possible disengagement within the alliance. It says U.S. President Donald Trump has repeatedly urged European allies to invest more in their military, arguing that Washington bears too much of the burden. NATO, right during the Biden administration, it says NATO countries have outlined plans to further increase military budget, citing potential Russian attacks. The EU has announced plans to borrow hundreds of billions of euros to spend on a militarization assurance needed to deter Russia. Moscow has denied any aggression intentions, with President Vladimir Putin describing the speculations completely nonsense. It says the report shows that military spending in the Middle East also rose sharply, reaching a estimating 243 billion in 2024, driven by the war in Gaza and border region instability.
It's probably Golden Box. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's probably. Yeah.
So you got that name box in there.
Yeah.
Call them like that box.
Yeah.
They charge you for that shit?
I don't think they don't. For replacement, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Been had them a long time.
Yeah.
So we put new two boxes on.
Yeah.
And you know, that's why they do it.
Yeah.
Just come in, but that thing come in the right time, like, wait a minute.
Yeah. One moment, please. Yeah.
I just did one wait.
Okay. And this is the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. This is the last scripture that I'm closing out. This is prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty man, let all the men in war draw near, let them come up. Right, so the Heavenly Father put that warlike military mindset in these armies of nations. That's why you see in that news article that military spending been up at an all-time high ever since the Cold War. A report came out of 2024. So that's why we've been seeing these nations are being rising up against one another as they're getting closer and closer, being gathered over there in Western Asia. In the Valley of Jehoshaphat, army and armed God won. That leads into the Third World War. So we definitely see an increase in significant signs of that throughout the years and as of recently. This is Joel chapter 3, verse 10. Beat your plowshares and swords and pointing hooks into spears and let the weak stand strong. Right, so we're going to have these military arms of nations spending more on their militaries, building up their nuclear capability against their adversaries, and let the weak stand strong. So we're going to be seeing more significant signs of that. This is Revelation 11, verse 14. The second will pass, behold, the third will come quickly. Right, so the second will pass, behold, the third will come quickly, which is Armageddon, armor God won. So we're seeing signs of that. So with that, hopefully this sit-down lesson was edifying with part 1 and part 2 of the prophecy updates as of March the 28th, 2025 on this Monday night. So with that, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hashem, Kakadash, and the Heavenly Father. The true name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Ba'Hashem, and the name of Mashiach Yahushai. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, the Lashon Kadas Little Tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles, Wa'ak and Wa'akwaf. Until next time, I would say Shalom.